Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp. As you know, every other week we look at games that are 50% off or more on our midweek sales episode. And today I think we've got quite a few little gems. As we didn't have a Savoy selection on Sunday, I think this can kind of fill in for that one. And remember, we do give away a free game each and every week on our Sunday sales video, so do go check that one out if you missed it. I think it was actually one of our members that won the free game last week, so GG to them. Alright, what games are on sale this week? Well, let's find out. First up, we've got Windbound, which is 95% off, taking it down to a ridiculous £1.59. If you're unfamiliar with Windbound, it was actually worked on by Deep Silver and kind of came out of the blue. No one really knew what it was going to be about, but it had survival elements, and the main theme of it was exploring these mysterious islands. But to do so, you had to build your own raft. Now, it started out modular. You could put different pieces onto it, different sails, and it features a simulated weather system, so you kind of have to tack into the wind and things like that. I mean, I know nothing about sailing, so if that's the right terminology, then fantastic. Now, when it first came out, it had a number of issues, and there are a few things I would have liked to have seen them do. I wanted a free sailing mode, and it had quite a few bugs. Now, that's all been ironed out, and it does have that free mode now, so you can just go and chill. If you want a nice relaxing game that's not the deepest, then this will be a good choice. It's 95% off, as I say, at just £1.59. Next up, we've got Atelier Ryza, the first one with a very long after tag name, which I can never remember, something about a secret hideout, but it's 60% off at the moment, which is a very good price. Now, if you're not aware of the series, there's actually 3 games in this trilogy. So the Ryza trilogy almost reignited the Atelier series, especially on Switch. And now there's 20 something games, and they keep bringing their old games and remaking them in this new style. Now, these are traditional JRPGs, and they use the same Atelier system that you may or may not be familiar with, whereby you're having to brew different potions and use different ingredients from your travels to meet people's requests. The Atelier system in this one was a little bit more simplistic, I guess is the best way to say it, but the core gameplay still feels the same, and it is a nice introduction to this, and we reviewed it on the channel and thoroughly enjoyed it. As I say, that one is 60% off, certainly worth considering, and it's probably one of the more expensive games we're going to look at today. The Braveland Trilogy came out a long time ago. It's down 80% on its normal price. This one's a tactical turn-based game that uses a hexagonal grid battlefield. There's a full storyline that guides you through it, but it has almost like an overworld map, but that consists of interconnected stages. So you fight a battle and then you move on that overworld to the next one. There are several different islands to travel to as well throughout your adventures, which I believe covers 3 different story chapters. I think the art style might not appeal to everyone. I do quite like it, and I was quite pleased that they included 2-player, but that one's on sale until February the 15th. As I say, that's 80% off.
We then have Greek Memories of Azure, which is on sale for most regions, albeit in some it is going to end very soon, especially by the time you're watching this video. But for others, it's on sale for a good 10 days or so yet. It's very odd how the Eshop decides on things such as that. Anyway, this is a single player adventure game where you play as 3 siblings, 2 of which you need to find as the game goes on, but each of them have their own powers. It's a bit like the Lost Vikings in that respect, in that you need to use the 3 characters to get past a number of different puzzles as you go through the game. It's a single player game, which is a shame. It would be nice if you could have had a second player join you and switch between the characters, and sometimes the transition from one character to the other can be a bit clunky, for want of a better word, but it's a good game, especially at this price if you do get it on sale in time in those regions where it ends very soon, as it's currently 75% off.
Kona's a really nice game. I didn't really know what to expect when I first played it. Essentially, you're placed in the Canadian tundra, put behind the wheel of a car, and then it breaks down quite quickly. The problem is obviously completely freezing, and you'll have just a few moments to try and seek shelter start a fire, and then obviously fix your car up so that you can move on. Now, the community that you're investigating have a rather unusual history, and you can basically travel to the different houses at your leisure. You can go where you want, and then when you go inside them, sometimes there'll be a character, like there's an old guy in one that tries to shoot you with a shotgun, but most of the time there's no one there. It's all abandoned, and you're going through old diaries and reading old notes to find out exactly what happened here. There's a supernatural twist as well that I won't spoil, but it does that old narration thing of narrating events that seem more mundane. It'll be like, Carl stepped out of his car into the blizzard. His skin was frozen, you know, all that kind of stuff. Now, it didn't take too long to finish this. You could do it in about 6 hours, but 80% off, certainly something a little bit different that you might enjoy. That sale goes on until February the 18th. Then we have a multi-pack. I don't often talk about multi-packs, but this one is well worth it. It's 95% off, which is the cheapest it's ever been. And it's the pack that includes the 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, Redeemer, and Ash of Gods. Now, I reviewed Redeemer and Ash of Gods, and Glen reviewed 9 Monkeys, I believe. The Redeemer game is essentially a top-down action game. You can perform these slow-mo finishing moves. It's full of blood and gore, and it's quite linear. No roguelite here. This is an old-school action arcade game, and yeah, I enjoyed it for that reason, I think. They did a lot of patchwork when this first came out to get it up to a much better standard, and it runs well. Then you've got Ash of Gods in that pack as well. This feels a little bit like the Banner Saga games. There are 3 different protagonists, I believe it's 3 different ones, and their stories kind of overlap and they're in completely different places. The problem I had with the game was that some of the translation doesn't quite cut the mustard. It's still a fun game to play, and it has this tactical turn-based combat that you would be familiar with if you've played the Banner Saga games. But yeah, just some of that translation's a bit iffy.
Yep, and the other game in this pack, 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, is a beat 'em up on a 3D plane as opposed to the more traditional 2D plane, where you play as a fisherman wanting to avenge the death of his family. A lot of the combat revolves around using a bow staff, and you'll make your way through a number of different environments. It's a good game actually, and it does have co-op play, which is always a bonus in a beat 'em up. And again, for the price you're paying for this bundle, it's an absolute steal. The next one, Killer Frequency, is an interesting game in that it plays out almost like a 1980s slasher movie. You play as a DJ in a small town where you are putting the songs on, giving weather updates, etc. And then you get a phone call in that night saying that someone is attempting to murder the caller, and they're screaming out for your help. It transpires that a killer is on the loose through the town. A killer that reverts back to a secret that the town has since buried, and you'll get various calls through the night through people that are being stalked, and the decisions you make will decide whether they live or die. It's an interesting concept. It's a little clunky at times in terms of some of the movement as it's set in a first-person view, but for 50% off, if you're wanting a good 5-6 hours worth of play, this is quite a decent pickup.
Lead someone on the roof. It's gonna be a hard climb.
Heather's got this. Focus. You got this.
Thank you, Forrest.
Go right. I'm out. Thank you, Forrest.
The Bug Butcher then is basically this dev team's answer to Pang and Pang Adventures. It's a really nice game. It's just £1.99 at the moment, and as the title suggests, it features a load of bugs that you're splatting. Now, as with Pang Adventures, you can play 2-player co-op, and that's where this one really shines. Not only does it have the standard levels, this one also features boss fights, and it introduces a number of different hazards, so it just mixes things up a little bit more than perhaps Pang Adventures. That's not to say it's a better game though. I think there's something about Pang and just how simplistic but kind of pure arcade fun it is Puzzle Arcade I would say is probably the superior game, but still this does a really good job of recreating that addictiveness.
The next game is a 2D platformer called Ageless, which is currently 75% off, bringing it down to a couple of pound, depending on your region. And the major gameplay mechanic here revolves around having to shoot arrows at flora or fauna in order to age or de-age them, thus helping you with some environmental puzzles. For example, it may be that shooting a plant causes it to grow upward, allowing you passage to a higher pathway, or it could even be that you de-age a rhinoceros to its quite docile old state to a young aggressive state where it then smashes through a wall to let you through. It's quite an interesting concept, and it's not a bad game. It's one of those high 60s, low 70s games if you were to score it, and I do have a review for it on the channel saying that. And if you're looking for something a little different or just something to kill a few hours at this price, you could do a lot worse. We also have Actraiser Renaissance, down to 50% off at the moment, which is a remake of a classic game that was on the Super Nintendo. For the most part, it plays very similarly to the game that inspired it, with you having to make your way through a number of levels. But the difference here is that it also has almost like a town building element to it, where after completing the 2D platforming stage, you are taken to a top-down view of a village, and you need to build this up with followers who will then worship you as the god that you are to make you stronger for the next platforming section. It's an interesting game, and it has added a few elements to this new version. There's almost like a tower defense part to it now too. That part I could have done without, to be honest, and the graphics have been changed from their original pixel form, but I really enjoyed this game. If you have any love for the original, just be aware there are a few tweaks to it, but for me it's still well worth playing, especially at this price.
Last but not least then, and a really good spot from Glen, to be honest, this is exactly what this list is all about. It's a game called Another Sight, and it's a lovely little hidden gem at a ridiculous price. It's just £3.59, which is 90% off its usual RRP. It's a surreal fantasy adventure that feels a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, but it's set in London in 1899 and has that steampunk aesthetic to it. You're obviously joined by your little feline companion, who you actually meet in the depths of the London Underground. Now, it all gets a bit dark when the main protagonist loses her sight. The tunnel that you're in collapses, so then the cat assists you, but each of you have your own abilities and have to use those to solve the various puzzles. Really good, this one, but I would never be paying 30 odd quid for it. It seems like on Metacritic it's about a 7 out of 10 type game, so for £3, yeah, that's a great spot. That sale goes on until February the 22nd.
Unearthly. Is this another dream?
One to avoid then, for you newcomers, it would have to be the Kingdom Hearts Cloud Edition, which has a very deep discount, but my experience of these is that they just don't work. The cloud versions on Switch, I don't know if it's my internet and I have a good connection, but it's just a really bad experience. Plus, let's be honest, it's not really something that we want to encourage too much, and I don't think Square have done it since. So yeah, let's keep going in the right direction of actual releases. So that's it for our midweek sales. Let us know any that you've picked up. As I say, we do like to give away a free game each and every week. If you're new to the channel, consider sticking around. And if you are going to buy any of these, save yourself a bit of money. There's links in the description for discounts on your eShop credit, or if you're a physical collector and want to buy somebody physically, we have a Play Asia discount down there as well.
A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.